Welcome to Unity Bits. Once again, we're here and we're going to find out how to do something great.
And that great thing is we're going to take your editor code that is in all of your projects probably. We're going to put it all in one place. Unity has this thing since 4 point something, I believe. They came out with this different way of putting a lot of their stuff, packaging a lot of their stuff into DLLs, and they call it a module manager, as you can see here under Edit Modules. You can see these different quote modules that they have, and this just lets them update these particular things without updating the whole product. So it gives them a sort of a granular ability, more granular ability to do that. And they've got all these different modules. Unity Analytics is a module, advertisements, and so forth. And let me show you where that is. I'm going to bring this Explorer over here. We're in this particular, I'm in Windows, of course, and I've got the default installation of Unity here, and that is in Program Files, Unity, and we go to Editor, Data, Unity Extensions, and that's where you find it. So it's weird kind of because they say it's in the Unity Extensions folder, and yet they put it under a module manager in the Unity editor. So a module, an extension, I guess it's a naming convention, whichever one you want to use. Anyway, let's look into one of these. Let's look into the Unity module or Unity extensions. Let's look at, I don't know, let's look at the advertisements folder. This is where the advertisements module or extension lives. And you can see the structure here. You've got a DLL and some other stuff here, and then you've got this XML file. And then you've got this editor folder. Well, what's this all about? Well, the editor folder is where you're going to put stuff. You're going to put DLLs that will not be built with a project. So if you build something, you build a version of your game or whatever with Unity for a particular platform, this is where you want to put your stuff, is in the editor folder for your DLL extension. So you see here's the GUI system, and you see you've got Unity Engine UI DLL, and that's out here. So that would, if it was built, when you build for a platform, this would get put into that build. But anything in the editor folder does not. So that would be editor specific stuff, which is where we're going to go. That's what we're going to do, is we're going to build a DLL for our editor functionality that we want to stick into the Unity editor and become a part of the Unity editor, which is really where we all want to be. We all want to be integrated into the hive mind that is Unity, right? One of the important things that we're going to be looking at, one of the really important things that we're going to be looking at, that we're going to need, is this iv.xml file, and that's going to tell Unity how to load this stuff, where it is, what it looks like, and all that. So let me open this iv.xml file. So we're gonna copy this here eventually, but we'll go over the structure here real quick. So this is describing what Unity needs to do whenever it sees this module or this extension. So it says, hey, there's some artifacts here in this particular area right here under the publications node, and there's a Unity Engine.ui, and it's of type DLL, and then they give it a GUID, so it's uniquely identified. They do the same thing for a couple of other things. See, they have a standalone, and then there's the editor, the Unity Editor UI, which is that DLL that will not be included in builds, which is again where we're going to kind of restrict ourselves to, is things that won't be included in a platform build. And then if we go up here and look at this info node, you see this attribute version. They've got it set at 5.6.2, which happens to be the version of Unity that I'm using. But really, it's really just whenever you do your own custom extensions or modules, then you can set it to whatever you want. You can use it to indicate the actual version of your extension or whatever. Organization is Unity, and in our case, it will be something else. The module is GUI system, or in our case, it will again be something entirely different. And then we've got this package type called Unity Extension, which is what we will have. And then we've got this Unity version, and you see they're indicating 5.6.2 F1, which if you try to use this iv.xml file on a previous version of Unity, it will not load it, and a later version of Unity, it will not load it. So what I do is, for 5.6 anyway, I've been just doing this, and that covers everything, 5.6 point whatever. And then whenever you get into Unity 2017, you'll just do something like this, and then that extension will work for all versions of 2017 until that number, the big number, the major version number changes. So I make sure that I don't save any of that. So that's an iv.xml file. So what we're going to do is we're going to really just have an iv.xml file. We're going to have an editor folder, and we're going to have one DLL inside that folder. So everything that we're going to do, like I said, is going to be in this Unity extensions folder, and you can see I already have my own extensions here. I have this Pixelbyte Studios directory, and I have 3 separate extensions, and they are the same. See, I just have the Ivy, an editor directory, and then a DLL under it. So, and I'll show you just a little bit what I've got here. I've got those 3 extensions do several things, as you can see. One of them is what I call the definer, and you've probably seen versions of this in the wild, but it just lets me add custom defines based on the platform. So I can add debug info to something and say, yeah, enable it for downloadable or the standalone and the Android and WebGL. So you can do that kind of stuff. And all of these things, this whole menu item right here, is from those 3 DLLs, or those 3 extensions that I have right here. And they run for every project, so they basically are in the Unity editor itself. So the Unity editor itself loads those, which is great. That means I don't have to copy any of that code into any of the projects that I want to use it in. And that's what we're after here today. So let's start by making a folder in this Unity extensions directory. So as you can see, for Windows, it's gonna make me do a administrative escalation there. We'll call this Unity bits. And now a tip: you should, whenever you create in here, since we're in the program files, the way that everything works here, you kind of have to do the administrative thing. So we're going to go to Properties on here, Security, Advanced, and we're going to change the owner from administrator to whatever your username is. That way we can do things like copying our DLL over with a script from when we build it. It makes it a lot easier than having to copy it all manually. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll close this, we'll open it back up, and then I'm just going to give myself, I'm going to add myself to the list of users here, and I'm going to give myself full control, and then boom. So now I should be able to create whatever I want in here and not have that administrative escalation requirement. And that way, any of the programs that I'm running, say Visual Studio or MonoDevelop, I can run scripts that will copy data and such into here. And that'll make it a lot nicer whenever you develop these things. And one of the things that you want to note, that you should note, is it's kind of finicky whenever you're developing some of this stuff, especially when you change things in the iv.xml file. I'll show you that here in a little bit. Let's just go ahead and get started though, and let's bring up MonoDevelop. I normally use Visual Studio, but I'll use MonoDevelop here because that's probably what most people, not most people, but anyway, that's a commonality. So not everybody, maybe not everybody will have Visual Studio. I recommend that you do, but we'll do it in MonoDevelop. The steps are the same. So I'm going to put it in this particular folder. Of course, the project folder is not that important. That's not going to be the project name. I did that wrong, didn't I? I want it to go here. Bing. And then I want to call it Unity Bits Module. I like it. Create, and here we are. So here we are in our module, and I want to name this Unity Bits Module, and I want to name the class Unity Bits Module. Just like that. And we don't need a constructor, so I'll take that out. And I'm going to make the namespace Unity bits. Now, what we're going to need to do, a few things we're going to need to do. We're going to need to go into the project settings. So I'm going to go right click on that and say options. Go into general, and the target framework isn't going to be 4.5 because as of Unity 5.6, they're using .NET 3.5 or the Mono version of that. So I'm going to select that. Otherwise, if you get the wrong framework, it will not work. It won't work. So that's a safe one, especially for Unity 5.6. That's the one that actually works. And then the assembly name, Unity3d Module, that's fine. Check these other things. Main settings, default namespace. Let's do default namespace Unity bits. Not that it really matters, but okay. There we go. So we're ready to go, right? Well, not exactly. We have to add references to the Unity editor and the Unity editor DLL, and then the Unity engine DLL. So to do that, at least in MonoDevelop and in Visual Studio, it's the same kind of thing. I'm going to go to .NET Assembly, and you click Browse. You can see, though, that it has saved those from where I have done it before. So I don't have to go browse for them. It knows where these are, so it's cached them. So I'm just going to add both of those, the Unity Editor DLL and the Unity Engine DLL. We'll say OK, and now they're there. And I'm going to go ahead and add those here because we're going to need both of those. Unity Engine and using Unity Editor. Just like that. Oh, it's wonderful. I love it. And we're also going to need this in another place. So let's pause on this file for a moment. And there's another couple things that we need to do. Let's go into the properties and go to assembly info C# file where we're configuring things. We're going to need to do a few things here. One of which is we're probably not going to want compiler services. We're probably going to want, we're going to want interop services. And we are also going to want to say we want to use the Unity Engine namespace here. And that is because we want to add an assembly attribute that is called assembly is editor assembly. And you see from here, any classes in an assembly with this attribute will be considered to be editor classes, which is what we want. We want to make sure that Unity knows that this assembly is a bunch of editor code. And the other thing that we're going to want to do, thing number 2, is we're going to add another assembly attribute, and we want to add a GUID to this thing. If you remember, whenever we were looking at that Ivy XML file, all of Unity's DLLs that they were adding into their extensions, into their module, had GUIDs. We don't have to use this, but there are certain reasons why you will want to use this if you do certain things. I'll show you that later, but we're going to go ahead and add one so that we have already marked it. So we need a GUID here. How do we do that? How do we generate a GUID? Well, in Visual Studio and in MonoDevelop, there's a nice little directory called Tools, and there is a place, for at least in MonoDevelop, to just insert a GUID. And Visual Studio has something very similar. I think theirs is a GUI-based tool to do GUIDs. We're just going to do that, and that works perfectly. So that should be everything that we need to do for this assembly info. So I'm gonna leave it open because we're gonna need to come back, and we'll probably come back and copy that GUID here in a little bit. Let's make a simple module here, or a simple extension, simple method, and we're gonna add a menu item to Unity's menuing system. We'll call it Unity bits, and we'll do /test. So that's what the menu item will be under the file. Let's show you. So like this, it'll be Unity bits, and then when we click it, there will be a test method. That's what we want to do. I'm going to close this because we're going to open it with our new thing later. Whenever you do this module or extension development, you have to close and open Unity so that it finds those things again and reloads them. So that's one of the kind of irritating things about it. But hey, you got some good benefits here. So I'm going to do a debug log, and we'll say hello from Unity3d Module. Hello there. Just like that. Oh, of course. This is the class. Sorry about that, people. we need an actual method down here. Let's say needs to be a static void. We'll call it test. Don't know what my mind was doing there, but really sorry about that. There we go. Now we've got it all going right, and we'll put that back like that. So now we have something that should work. And if I spell the module right, so I'm going to build that, and then I'm going to go into that folder, build was successful. Grab just that Unity bits module DLL. That's all we need. Okay, so and I'm going to go back to our Unity bits extension. And within this folder, you can put as many folders as you want. What Unity does, it goes through all these folders and it looks for that iv.xml file. So we could put a new folder in here, and we could call it test module. Let's call it test module. And with this, I want to go back and grab that iv.xml file. I'm just going to do a save as. This is the one we were looking at earlier. I'm going to say save as, and we're going to save that into our Unity bits test module folder. So now it's that. Now we'll just edit this to do what we want. So we know that we're going to want, let's go in here. We're going to want an editor folder, and in that editor folder, we're going to put this DLL that we want to load. And now we're going to change some of this stuff. Now this, again, is not that important. Organization, we're going to say Unity bits. And the module will be Unity bits module. Basically, you can name it whatever you like. Package type is going to be the Unity extension. And we're going to get rid of this additional specification so that we can run on anything 5.6 because our stuff will be compatible because we control it. We don't need this, or we only need one artifact. It's going to be in the editor folder, and it's not going to be called this. It's going to be called Unity bits module. Just like this. We'll get rid of this GUID field for now, and I'll show you the benefits of not having it, and then the benefits of having it if you need it. Okay, so now we have everything. I believe we have what we need. We got the DLL in the editor folder. The iv.xml file is created and configured, I believe, correctly. So let's start up Unity and see if we can get our little menu to show up. I'm going to select, you can select any project. We'll let Unity load up here. And is it there? It is indeed, and there it is, right there. And we'll say, we'll say test. And there you go, hello from Unity bits module. So that works. Great. Something I want to do real quick is I want to remove my extensions, my modules. Now I was talking about the GUID earlier, and where is there? Actually, right here. Why did we have this? Well, why didn't we use it? Basically, because we took that out. We had it right here, and we could have put our GUID in right here, right? We could have just gone ahead and done this, and you get rid of the dashes, and all would be well, right? Well, if you do that, it's good, except Unity gives you an error. Unity gives you an error whenever you do that. But it still works. Everything still works fine. I don't know if you noticed. I'm going to leave this unsaved here, and I'm going to go back. You need to see this. You really need to see this. I'm going to put my extensions back because all of my extensions have GUIDs on their for my DLLs. So I'm going to load this again. I'm going to show you. I forgot to show you this earlier. I'm just going to load a project in Unity, and you'll see 3 errors pop up, one for each of my modules. It says it wasn't registered, so that means that it relies on default Unity extension settings, and then it wants you to register extension and apply necessary settings in the callback. Well, I have not within the past few months, but I have previously gone through and looked into their assemblies to try to figure out how to do some of this, which is where some of this came from. But I couldn't figure out the registers extensions and the callbacks and stuff like that seem to be sealed or basically not accessible from me. So I wasn't able to actually do that. But the only thing that means is I have to deal with these stupid errors that pop up every time I load Unity with my 3 extensions. It does not affect, at least it hasn't yet, and I've been doing it for a while, it doesn't affect them how they work or if they work or not. So these are just errors that you just have to deal with if you want to use the GUIDs. And that's one of the crummy things about using the GUID, but the good thing I'll show you here in just a minute. So I'm going to close Unity and I'm going to remove the Pixelbyte Studios extensions. And by the way, it would be really awesome if Unity would open this up and actually document it, or at least allow extensions to be registered via that callback. You know, I haven't looked in a while, and maybe I should look to see if they do now. I'm gonna, since we already have this all nice and pretty, I'm gonna go ahead and copy that, and then I'm gonna comment this out, and I'm gonna remove this GUID line here because I want to show you why you would want a GUID. I mean, if you're just gonna do menu stuff where you're going to do special little things like this, then you don't need a GUID, and you can run happy. But I'm going to let's add an editor window class, and let's call it a bits window, and we'll derive it from editor window, and we of course need class here. I'm getting ahead of myself, and we'll say static. We need a way to initialize one of these things, so we'll static void init, and we'll say get window bits window, so that will grab us one if one is not already on the screen. And we'll add actually, instead of doing it like this, I'm going to just copy this and we'll add a menu item attribute to this, and we'll say editor window. So we want to display that, and I'm going to add just a little additional flair here. I'm going to have a flag boolean, and we'll do void on GUI, so that whenever the GUI is drawn on our little window, we will say flag equals editor GUI layout toggle, ha ha ha, toggle me please. And then that will be put back into that same boolean. Now let's build this one, and then let's go find our output directory. There it is. We will go find our extension directory, which is right here in test module and editor. So I'm going to copy this new version of the Unity bits module into our editor folder. Now I'm going to run Unity again. Yeah, I'm going to just select one of these projects, and we should see now we've got this. So we've got that, which says our hello, and now we have the editor window, which of course pops up on my other screen, but there it is. Toggle me please. So I said, yes sir, I'll toggle you. Now this is great, and if that's all I want to do, and I don't want to dock this window and save this as a layout and come back later, then I'm fine. I don't need a GUID. But watch what happens if I do this. I dock the window. Let's close Unity, and now I'm going to open it back up again, as if we've come back from a long and now we'll see what it says. Removed MP dock area. So Unity didn't know what that window was because it didn't have a GUID. It didn't know where to find the class that controlled that window. So if you want a window to stay, I'm going to close Unity again. If you want that window to stay, then we need to have a GUID for our DLLs or DLL that controls that window. We do already have one because we stuck one in here. And remember, I just commented this out, which is the same as this, only with the GUID added. So I'm going to Now add the GUID back. And now this is one of the kind of the quirky things about working with this stuff. In order to get, Unity must cache this stuff somewhere. So in order to have it actually come back correctly, I'm going to remove this test module. I'm going to load it, and then we'll put it back and load it again. That seems to be the best way, at least as of now, that I can get it to pay attention and say, oh, it has a GUID now. So there we go, and I'm going to close it, and now we'll put it back. And then I'll open it again, and Unity should pick it back up and see that the Ivy file has changed, and then use that GUID. And then we'll also get an error, which again is something that we can ignore at this point. See, there it is. And if you want to look into this stuff, you can right click on the console tab and you can say open editor log, and then you can come down, we can come down here at the bottom, near the bottom, and you see there's our module. And see, now it has a GUID, whereas before, I don't know if it has the stuff before. Before, if you look in your editor log, you'll see that it doesn't have a GUID. But anyway, the GUID will give you this. You'll get this error because Unity wants you to use something other than the default Unity extension settings, which I would love to if I could. But anyway, let's now do the same thing we tried before, which is let's dock this window. And then I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to go open it again as if we've come back and want to code some more, and that window will be there because Unity now knows what class that window belongs to. See, there it is, just like it needs to be. And I use this myself. I have this well, it's not in, but I have a window that I want to put in my layout permanently. And I believe you can actually save those layouts too. So that's why you would want to put a GUID in, is if you want to have any of those windows persist in your projects. And that is about it for this episode, and I hope that this is helpful and that you create your own modules and stick them into Unity, and you can eliminate some of the code duplication that plagues, I think, all Unity developers, especially whenever they use these editor extensions. Now no longer do you have to worry about that, and it doesn't have to be per project. It can be from the editor and loaded by the editor and sort of basically like part of the editor. And with that, I'll see you next time.